Dr. Elena Vasquez pressed her palms against the observation deck's reinforced glass, watching the dying light of humanity's last hope flicker in the void. The research station Prometheus hung in the shadow of Jupiter's red storm, its sensors, trained on the cosmic anomaly that had appeared 3 days ago, a pulsing tear in space itself, leaking whispers that drove lesser species to madness. "The Galactic Council's evacuation fleet just jumped to hyperspace," reported Commander Chen from behind her. "We're officially alone out here." Elena didn't turn around. She'd expected this. When the stars began whispering again after 10,000 years of silence, every alien civilization in the galaxy had fled in terror. The Zorathi, with their crystalline minds, the gas-dwelling Netherians. Even the mighty Krex Empire had abandoned their border worlds and retreated to the galactic core. Only humanity remained. "Good," Elena said quietly. "They'd just get in the way." The anomaly pulsed again, and through the station's hull came the sound. Not heard but felt, resonating in the bones and blood of every human aboard. It was beautiful and terrible, like the song of dying gods. Elena's research team had been studying it for 72 hours straight, and they were closer to understanding it than any species had come in millennia. "Dr. Vasquez," called her assistant Marcus from the sensor station, "I'm picking up something new, the whispers. They're forming patterns, mathematical sequences." Elena finally turned, her dark eyes blazing with the fever of discovery that had driven her species to the stars. "Show me." The holographic display materialized above the central console, showing wavelengths and frequencies that danced like aurora across 3 dimensions. But Elena saw more than pretty lights. She saw structure, purpose, intelligence. "My God," she breathed. "It's not random. They're trying to communicate." Commander Chen stepped closer, his weathered face grim. "The Galactic Archives say the last time," the stars whispered, "it preceded the Great Dying. 17 civilizations wiped out, entire star systems sterilized." "Because they didn't listen," Elena said, her fingers flying across the interface. "They were too afraid. They heard whispers of doom and ran instead of trying to understand." She pulled up the historical records, fragments of data salvaged from dead worlds. Every account was the same. The whispers came, civilizations panicked, and then silence. But the records were incomplete. No one had stayed long enough to document what actually happened. "Humanity doesn't run," Marcus said, echoing the unofficial motto that had carried their species from Earth to the farthest reaches of the galaxy. Elena smiled grimly. It was true. When other species encountered something they couldn't understand, they fled or attacked. Humans did something different. They tried to figure it out. It was a trait that had made them simultaneously the youngest and most influential species in galactic politics. The anomaly pulsed again, stronger this time. The station's hull groaned under forces that shouldn't exist, and several crew members doubled over as the whispers intensified. But Elena remained standing, her mind racing as she processed the data streaming across her screens. "The patterns are accelerating," she announced. "Whatever's coming through that tear, it's almost here." Through the viewports, space began to distort. Reality folded like origami, and something vast began to emerge. Not a ship, but a structure that defied Euclidean geometry. It was beautiful. In its impossibility, its surfaces shifting between dimensions that human eyes couldn't quite process. "Jesus Christ," whispered Commander Chen. "What is that thing?" Elena stared at the entity as understanding crashed over her like a wave. "It's not bringing doom," she said, her voice filled with wonder. "It's running from it." The whispers intensified, and suddenly Elena could hear them, really hear them. Not words, but concepts flowing directly into her consciousness. Images of a universe much older than their own, where ancient beings had transcended physical existence eons ago. Images of something else pursuing them across dimensions, something hungry and dark that consumed thought itself. "The Great Dying!" Elena gasped. "It wasn't caused by the Star Whisperers. They were refugees trying to warn everyone. But the other species couldn't understand the message. They panicked and made themselves visible to the real threat. The dimensional entity pulsed, and Elena felt its gratitude wash over her. Finally, after 10 millennia of searching, it had found a species capable of understanding. Humans, too stubborn to run, too curious to stop asking questions, too adaptive to be broken by impossible truths. "Dr. Vasquez," Marcus called urgently. "I'm detecting massive gravitational distortions throughout the system. Something's coming through hyperspace. Something big." Elena looked at the data and felt her blood turn cold. The entity had been followed. The predator that had consumed 17 civilizations was here, drawn by the refugees' desperate transmission. But as she watched the approaching darkness, Elena smiled. The other species had run because they thought the whispers brought doom. They were wrong. The whispers brought warning, and humanity never backed down from a fight, especially when someone needed protecting. "Commander," she said, her voice steady despite the cosmic horror bearing down on them, "signal the defense fleet. Tell them we have a new mission." Chen raised an eyebrow. "What kind of mission?" Elena turned back to the viewport, watching as the dimensional refugee pulsed with new hope. Behind it, reality began to fray at the edges as something infinitely hungry approached. But humanity had faced the impossible before and turned it into routine. "The kind we're good at," she said. "Save the universe again." The stars whispered their ancient warning, but for the first time in 10,000 years, someone was finally listening. And when humanity listened, the universe had a tendency to listen back. The real fight was about to begin.